History of aerial warfare success is often associated with technological superiority, numerical advantage, or overwhelming firepower. The H-3 airstrike of April 4, 1981, conducted by the Iranian Air Force during the Iran-Iraq War, shattered all assumptions. It demonstrated that intelligence, planning, deception, and human discipline could overcome distance, radar, and material disadvantage. More than a tactical victory, the H-3 airstrikes stand as a strategic lesson in how wars are won not by merely machines but by minds. Strategic context: a war of attrition in the air. By the early 1981, the Iran Iraq War had entered a brutal phase. Iran, backed by Western Soviet arms suppliers, had begun consolidating its power, especially air power. Modern fighters such as the Mirage F1 and heavy bombers like the Tu-22 and the Tu-16 were being integrated into Iraqi service. Facing Iranian counterstrikes and fearing losses near the front lines, Iraqi commanders made a critical decision. They reallocated many of their most valuable aircraft to the H-3 Air Base Complex, Al-Walid, in western Iraq, near the Jordanian border. From Iraq's perspective, H-3 was invulnerable. It lay almost 1,000 kilometers from Iranian airfields, far beyond the combat radius of Iranian fighters on standard routes. Protected by distance, desert isolation, and radar coverage, the base was assumed to be untouchable. This assumption would prove catastrophic. The target H-3 and the illusion of safety. The H-3 complex consisted of three airfields: H-3 Main, H-3 Northwest, and H-3 Southwest, spread across the Iraqi desert. Intelligence report reinforced by aerial reconnaissance revealed a dangerous Iraqi oversight. Dozens of aircrafts were parked in the open without hardened shelters. The base had been treated as a safe rear area rather than a frontline asset. Iranian commanders recognized an extraordinary opportunity. Destroying aircraft on the ground would neutralize Iraq's future offensive capabilities at a fraction of the cost of air to air combat. The challenge, however, was monumental. Reaching H-3 without detecting, refueling deep in hostile airspace, striking multiple targets simultaneously, and returning without losses. Planning the impossible, deception over directness. A direct attack was dismissed immediately. Flying straight towards western Iraq would require crossing Baghdad's dense air defenses and perform multiple refuelings under enemy radar coverage, an almost guaranteed failure. Instead, Iranian planners designed an audacious alternative route. The strike force would fly northward into Iranian airspace, then west towards Turkey, pass through the mountainous regions near the Turkish Iraqi border, descend into northern Iraq, and finally approach H-3 from an unexpected direction. This route exploited radar blind zones created by terrain and border assumptions. Iraqi radar operators, when they briefly detected the aircraft, mistook them for Turkish patrols. The plan was merely not unconventional, it was unprecedented. The critical risk: low altitude aerial refueling. The most dangerous element of this mission was aerial refueling. Iranian A4 Phantoms fighters lacked the range to complete the mission without multiple refuelings. To avoid detection, those refuelers were conducted at extremely low altitude, around 300 feet, far below standard aerial refueling procedures. Tankers had been secretly positioned in Syrian airspace, then maneuvered into the western Iraqi desert. Refueling heavy fighter jets such as low altitude in hostile territory with zero margin of error demanded absolute precision. Any misalignment, turbulence, or mechanical failure would have resulted in collision and loss of aircraft. Yet the refueling was executed flawlessly multiple times. Execution, speed, surprise, and total disruption. On April 4, 1981, Iranian strike aircraft reached the H-3 complex in complete surprise. The attack was swift and methodical. The formation split into groups to strike all three airfields near simultaneously. Runways were bombed to prevent takeoffs, while aircraft parked in the open were destroyed with bombs and cannon fire. Iraqi defenses reacted too late. Anti aircraft fire was disorganized. Fighters scrambled only after the damage had been done. Within minutes, dozens of aircrafts lay burning on desert floor. Crucially, no Iranian aircrafts were lost. Impact and dispute. What cannot be denied? Iraq later attempted to downplay the losses, disputing the number of aircraft destroyed. However, even conservative assessments acknowledge that the strike severely degraded Iranian air capabilities in the Western theater. More importantly, H-3 ceased to function as a secure rear base after this attack. The psychological impact was immense. Iraqi commanders could no longer assume that distances equaled safety. For Iran, the operation became a symbol of resilience conducted under sanctions with limited spare parts and international isolation. This mission proved that operational excellence could compensate for material constraints. Why the H-3 airstrike still matters. The H-3 airstrike is studied not because of its explosions, but because of its principles. Deception beats predictability. Terrain can defeat technology. Logistics decides strategy. Distance is not protection. Human discipline multiplies force. Few air forces, past or present, have attempted such a mission. Fewer still have succeeded. Conclusion: the victory of thought over assumption. The H-3 airstrikes stands as a warning etched into military history. It reminds us of strategists that the greatest vulnerability is not lack of weapons but false certainty. Iraq believed its aircrafts were safe because maps said so. Iran proved that war is not fought on maps alone. In the silent desert of western Iraq, on a single morning, on a single April morning in 1981, distance failed and strategy prevailed.